in that direction as my mic was muted on I'm testing out these live streams and my mic was muted there, so we're making all these stupid little small errors here at the start here, which is actually kind of funny. But slowly getting into it. I wanted to be live for all that data that we got just out at 8:30, but I was sleeping. So here we are. Wake up, ready to go. I needed all my energy and power for those Apple earnings after the close, not some data in the morning. But there was a few other names that reported earnings. I thought the Peloton one being interesting, that their CEO is leaving the company and they're cutting 15% of its global workforce. Obviously, never want to see that. But that was a name that was on our radar for a little bit, and I wonder how the stock is doing in pre-market trading. It could be an interesting one here. Am I seeing a move higher, or is this not pre-market data? Let me double check. Piton, and obviously Carvana had a decent. Some could call Carvana a decent pre-market move. Yeah, this does include some pre-market moves. So Peloton with a nice move in the morning. Carvana able to hold a lot of its one gap up, holding around that 120 level. So keeping an eye on a lot of this stuff. Kevin, good morning, sir. I know Empo's up here first. And I want to make sure we're going in his direction, but we got some macro data out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Was any of that interesting for you? I know we had some initial jobless claims. I think there was some stuff with the challenger job cuts and a few other things, trade balance data.
Yeah, a lot of data coming out this morning.
All right.
Let's just kind of run through it. So the calendar jobs cuts, we saw less than what we saw from the previous month, around 28% down to the
Should
downside when
be
it
able
came
to
to the
hear
announced job
Kevin.
cuts. And if you're looking at it on a year-over-year basis, down about 3.3%. We continue to see technology kind of lead the way there. And what's actually pretty cool about this report, I haven't seen it in other ones. I think this is the first time that they actually have separated it out, if I'm not mistaken. But they also have a line item now for job cuts due to AI. And so we saw
Oh, that's in.
800 jobs that were cut
Oh, that's
that were
interesting.
attributed to AI.
I did
Yep,
not know that.
yep, so that's pretty cool. Well, losing a job to AI is not cool, but being able to start to quantify the improvements or quantify the impact of the labor market, I think is a really nice touch that they completed here. Continuing jobless claims actually went considerably a lot lower, in my opinion. It came in at 1.77 million. She was looking at 1.8 million. And then the initial jobless claims continues to come in lower than the street's expectations. It seems like the street's bar is like 212,000. That came in at 208,000. Once again, that actually matched what we saw for last week when you're looking at the revision. I think the biggest thing for me is that actually the year labor costs that came in at 4.7%. Street was looking for 3.6%. That was the estimate, but the whisper number was 4%, but still hotter than expected. Now, once again, that's an inflationary gauge. But once again, we should know by now that the labor side, as far as wages, continues to come in high. I think that probably is going to set the stage tomorrow for the monthly job numbers that we are going to get. We will have an average hourly earnings component there as well. I think that'll probably most likely reaffirm what we are seeing from some of the survey data as well as some of the hard data that we are getting out here. So yeah, that was the day. The move back to the upside this morning for the futures, especially when you're looking at the E-mini S&P 500. I mean, we're trying to gain a little bit of momentum. We had and it wasn't even a weird. A lot of people are like, man, yesterday was kind of weird. I mean, let's say like that the move to the upside lasted a lot longer than what we typically would see. Let's say that, but we kind of talked about it in the morning yesterday. I mean, the option market was trying to push and looked like it was setting up for a positive move for the press conference, but also kind of noting like usually that first move is not the right one. We did see a little bit of a sell-off. Key takeaway, and I heard some of your guys' space yesterday. I was busy for Power Hour, so unfortunately I couldn't talk, but the biggest takeaway for me is actually the QT side. So we kind of talked about them like hinting when they're going to begin the reduction or the runoff of that particular policy. Sounds like June's going to be the take here. We're going to go from $60 billion that they're going to allow running off to down to $25 billion, leaving around $35 billion as the difference. And actually, I had a couple of people at DM me like,
Ooh.
what's the
Good
equivalent of
morning,
a basis
Rupesh.
point move or
Am I saying your name right?
a cut equivalent? And I'm gonna say like, there's a lot of different estimates out there, right? Between 25 to 50 basis points or what have you. What I would say though, just kind of keep in mind, like, we're still in an inverting environment, and that cut should theoretically actually impact the shorter end of the curve to the mid tier of the curve, right? From
Let's see some of the
2 year
data we got
to
here.
pretty much 7 year, in my opinion. So it's the equivalent of, let's say, like maybe one bond auction a month. So if you kind of a low bond auction, but kind of the equivalent of one bond auction. I think it's just the initiation of that policy, of that program, is just kind of signifying that
Nova,
yes,
move
interest
this one
rates, we're going to have
over.
them higher for longer,
Carvana.
but we are starting the easing policy, if you will,
Carvana's been
right? It's kind of
killing
like
it
the
this morning
opposite
off
of
of
what
some
Japan's
numbers
doing.
last night. Look at this
So
one. Look at
I
this move
thought
of
that was
Carvana.
actually, a
What's
little
the
bit of a
Qs doing in
positive in certain
pre-market trading?
respects, and market
Eh,
once again
almost.
kind of like sold that news. And I also believe too, the Fed kind of discounting inflation for now, they can get away with it. But if we continue to have, 2 months or
Hey
3 months worth
Rupesh,
of
how does
hot
it
data,
sound? You can hear
then I think
Kevin.
that there's
Okay,
going to
right?
put them in a little bit of a bind. But as long as the labor market doesn't crack anytime soon, I think they should be okay to go. We talked about JOLTS yesterday. Saw that reduction in JOLTS. I wasn't surprised by that. ISM manufacturing data, prices paid, came in hot,
Ooh.
but we did have an expansion when it came to um, the manufacturing number, which I think is once again a good sign. You really kind of want to see services cooling off just a little bit to be able to get that inflation down, since it's 70% of our economy. So today, I mean, we got the majority of the economic data, big data points out of the way. I think the market's going to try to just kind of prepare for these Apple earnings.
I thought there was more
Probably
earnings in
trading
the
more on a
morning.
little bit of news today. Keep your technical levels in check. I would say if you're looking at the E-mini S&P futures, 5090, key area of resistance that we just literally faded twice over the
Moody's.
last 30 minutes. So let's see if we can overcome that particular level. And then on the S&P 500, if you're looking at the 5,000 to the downside, 5,000 is key. We break that, we will be in a pretty significant negative gamma type of situation where we could continue to see a downside move. Hopefully market makers can compress volatility here today, consolidate, and then
Let's
try
see
to
if
get a
we
new
have
narrative
SPX on here. Ooh,
tomorrow
there
as
is.
we digest the Apple earnings. So
Okay.
that's what I'm looking
So
at,
this is that
Evan, and
level Kevin's talking
hopefully
about right there.
everybody's kind of prepared for maybe a little bit of a volatile ranging session.
I always love me some direction, but the chop, the volatility, it can be interesting. Um, I want to make. I have a couple questions. I do want to focus in specifically on Apple's earnings as well. But Mr. Emperador, always appreciate you joining me on these morning spaces, and he was up here like instantly. Emperador was here, so shout out to you. Appreciate you. How are you doing today? What are you watching?
Hey, good morning, guys. I woke up today and I was like, "Where is the morning prep show? What are we doing here?" I was scrolling through. I was like, "Evan, is Evan sleeping?"
Yeah, man.
And
I
then,
did. I was up at like 6:45, and I was like, all right, it will be a good day today. Then I wake back up and it's 8:30, and I'm like, ah, damn it.
well, after that was me. Basically the last 2 mornings, getting in the late start. I was like, "Okay, I'm here today," and then I passed it over to you, which much needed sometimes, right? I mean, the last couple of days. So, but anyways, you're here now. That's what matters. And I was actually, it's funny. I was scrolling through, like looking for it, and as soon as I refreshed my X app, I saw the space pop up. That's how it got here so quick. But no, we've
I know you were watching and reloading my page every 10 seconds. I respect it. I appreciate you.
yeah, I've got noties on. I know. So, what have we really done? Kind of a whole lot of nothing. It seems like. I mean, we are kind of in the bigger picture, still neutral to bearish, in my opinion. In the bigger picture, I mean, short to medium term, it depends on your time frame, right? So when I'm saying that, in the overall structure, like of your daily or 4 hour type of chart, even if you go to the weekly, to me, it's still a neutral to slightly bearish look.
This is what I'm live on right now,
But
by the way.
it is
It's slowly
interesting,
building
like
up.
especially Kevin mentioned the reaction yesterday to FOMC, and I kind of had the theory still, just my overall thesis right now was I thought we would pop and we would find, basically a nice pop to short on. And we popped way higher than I anticipated. And now we did obviously undo the entire move, which was wild. It was a wild roller coaster yesterday. As we got into the Q&A part of Powell speaking, but it was interesting how high we actually popped and then came back down, which we still have a pretty volatile market in general.
Ooh,
Our
maybe I
our
should lower the
moves
bid
and
range.
our ranges are outside of the normal. If you go back, with a year's worth of data or so, we ATRs or just average range, whatever people use to measure those things. If you go look at those statistics right now over the last 3 to 4 weeks, we are much higher compared to like the last year, last 2 years. If you just compare the data that way, so it was interesting. A lot of volatility in the market, which is nice, and sometimes with trades, but sometimes like yesterday, it gets to
Sorry
where
about this.
I don't even really want to touch it a whole lot, right?
I'm
A lot
looking
of
through the news
indecision
a
in the
little more, and
market
there isn't that
still.
much.
I think Friday's on the macro side. I think Friday's report's going to be uh, pretty interesting now. The non-farm payrolls, NFP, Friday morning, and then Apple kind of finishing out our mega cap earnings this afternoon. And I'm kind of hoping as we get through all these reports, a lot of people talk about, the 3-day rule after earnings. It's kind of a common cool off period people use as far as strategy goes in trading. And so I'm hoping once we get through this week, we start to get more of a direction or a picture of what the market wants to do, whatever that is. Because right now it seems rangy, but it seems very indecisive, especially if you look at it from zoomed out just a little bit. So we'll have to see, right? Apple's doing well in pre-market this morning. That earnings report I think is going to be really interesting. Some other names, QCOM reported yesterday. I think that was probably our largest company that reported yesterday. A very nice reaction by them. Some pretty good numbers there, and they're up. I believe they're still around 6% up from the close yesterday. So interesting report there as well to keep an eye on. You mentioned Carvana. I know our buddy Jordan's excited about that one, but um, honestly, right now it's. I think we're still in just a holding pattern. We're kind of waiting, in the. It's hard to say this because in a way, we were waiting and waiting on all these catalysts, right? Especially with earnings season, of course, FOMC right in the middle of it, and to be honest, the reaction hasn't really told us a whole lot yet, in my opinion. There's a few takeaways, obviously, or several takeaways, but as far as you know, back up, back down, or to the side, which one is we can have a really mixed report from the earnings and the economic data. So we'll just I guess keep monitoring that and kind of see where we go. We may just be in a consolidation for a little while too.
Yeah, I feel that. We were looking forward to a lot of these events coming up, and now that they're here, we're kind of talking about how maybe there's more stuff coming, and we're getting a lot of sideways action off of it. So I definitely do hear what you're saying, and hopefully this Apple one can give us a little volatility. The only name to the upside, that mega cap name that I could really think of that's given us any upwards move off of the earnings, is a Tesla, and it's even given some of it back. Not most of it. We're still around the 180 level, but it was all the way up to like 200 at one point. So we'll see, and definitely keeping an eye on that SPX level Kevin was talking about, 5,000. So should be an interesting day. Let's hope that the market can move it, but yeah, we're definitely not as bullish as we were at the first couple months of the year. It feels like the market was trying to for a little bit, and it just isn't the same market. Are we in this sell in May and go away? We're finally able to say that old adage now that we're actually in May. It'll be interesting to see if it actually works, because it was a sell in April and go away that we just got through.
Yeah, I pulled some of the data on that. I can throw up a chart here in just a minute. Not a technical chart, but like a data chart. Just the
This could
historical
refresh.
um, pieces of performance this time of year.
You can see
And it
Apple's
is typically
up
a
a little bit in
pullback time of year
pre-market.
now. There's
Starting.
so many outside factors going on. Of course, we have the geopolitical stuff that has kind of cooled down a little bit. But, with commodities and the dollar, oil's had a nice pullback the last few days. But,
What's up, Hedris?
with gold and yields. I mean, there's so many factors in this market right now that we're dealing with. So it's almost like there's not terrible news really out there, especially from these earnings reports, but you still have a lot of these other headwinds weighing us down. So there's a pretty big struggle, I think, going on between the Bulls and the Bears right now. And the Bears got some nice punches in, and the Bulls threw the little counter punch, and then now it's kind of like they're both sitting in the corner talking to their coaches going, okay, what's next? And honestly, after Friday, we were talking about it with Stock Talk last night. What's your next catalyst, really? And honestly, I don't see a big catalyst, at least a planned catalyst. Obviously, you could always have something, unplanned, but the next planned catalyst would probably be NVIDIA earnings, which is still about 3 weeks away.
Waiting on those NVIDIA earnings, although we still got Mr. Apple reporting earnings after the close today. Hopefully that can spark some volatility, although I would kind of agree with you. This is a market trading off of AI, and it's not necessarily been Apple's MO. Although there was a story this morning, which is the reason it's possibly part of the reason it's moving higher here, up about 1.5% G's took a couple tries in pre-market trading, and that is Apple CEO Tim Cook is expected to hint at new AI features next week. He's doing the thing, saying the word. So we'll see how that ends up doing for the stock. I'm hoping good stuff. What are we, Kevin? You have any thoughts on what Emperador was talking about there, and then just in general? I would love to talk a little bit of Apple earnings prep on kind of what you're watching for, what you're expecting. Obviously, that iPhone number will be very critical. It always is. It seems like the discussion for for Apple is around China right now and how bad the Apple Chinese business is going to end up being. But overall, similar to what we talked about with Tesla, the expectations for Apple are very low. A lot of people are expecting that pretty heavy contraction in the Chinese iPhone business and probably a minor contraction in the iPhone business in general that we're keeping an eye on. So if they can come in just at bad and the market has priced in very bad, that could end up being a decent thing for Apple. I'm also might just be coping with the fact that it's not been the best quarter and I might be moving lower. But I would love to hear your thoughts on what you're watching for on this Apple earnings call that we are earnings in general that we got coming up after the close today.
Yeah, I think that the market has braced for a tough China sales environment, and one of the things that was actually a really good sign yesterday, or really good indication yesterday, was actually Qualcomm's earnings, and they continue to see some strength when it comes to the handset market, of the smartphone market, especially when you're looking at AI. And they kind of hinted the fact that because they also help out and assist with other Chinese manufacturers for their phones, and they continue to see fairly decent demand, strong demand, so much so that they actually raised the revenue guide. So, I think that's a bright sign. If Apple says in their conference call, like, yeah, we did see a little bit of struggle to start off, but we are, in the current quarter, we are seeing some positive trends. I think that could probably move the stock to the upside. And then I'm also looking at their services business, and we continue to talk about iPhones, and yes, it's
a little business going on
huge driver when you're talking about hardware. But their services side of their business generates around 70% profit margins, if you will, gross profit margins. And so it's a smaller segment, right? I think it's only like 20% or 25% of total sales. But if they can continue to actually grow that market share or grow that revenue mix, I think that would actually ease a lot of the longer term investors' fears, because services, for the most part, is a little bit less cyclical than when you're looking at a hardware business. And then once again, it provides better margins. Hearing the situation around maybe some AI features, I mean, that's been a thing that people have been wanting and demanding. Maybe we get a little bit of a preview of that in the earnings call. But the comps on a year-over-year basis actually should be fairly favorable. I mean, I don't think, maybe it was potentially maybe one quarter, but I believe that Apple was actually having year-over-year revenue declines for like 4 of the past 5 quarters. So their comps this year to last year should actually be favorable. So we want to see a positive year over year number there because the bar is so low. Uh, and so, yeah, that's kind of how I take it. And I think the market's really looking for a story and getting a little bit thirsty for a story here. And Apple could potentially do it. And if you're looking at Apple from a technical standpoint, you can make a case that 165 to say 170 level has been an area of support where buyers have come in. Now, we are also kind of seeing us, make lower highs and making lower relative lows for the most part for this year. But once again, that could be a flag, a very long flag. It would be pretty much almost almost like a 9 month, full flag, if you will, meaning just a consolidation period. But I think based on the narrative, there's probably a little bit more upside than downside potential. But I am a little bit concerned when it comes to that 200-day moving average, which is sitting at $181.35. That starts to become a pretty significant area of resistance, then we could continue to range out. But bar is fairly low. They should exceed that bar. And then they will provide their outlook on their conference call. So we won't get that immediately. I don't think they're actually very specific. They keep it really high level. So
Yeah, they're the
that's
type
kind
of
of what I'm
company
looking
that
at for
likes to
Apple.
keep in the range of like, we think it will be double digits. We think it's going to grow the same percentage as last quarter, taking out the
Yeah.
Forex um, headwind, which actually was this way. And that was the best way someone's ever said, yeah, we think revenue is going to decline 5%.
Yeah, so that's kind of Apple's usually not a big mover. It could be today. Now it could be like the nail in the coffin to the downside, or we could actually see a little bit of an upside surprise, or it could just stay flat. I just feel like the bar is so low. It's kind of like the Tesla style. I mean, they're going to need to sell a story. Tim Cook is really good at selling a story. He's really good at painting a vision. He's really good at also speaking to the investor community, which is sometimes different than the consumer community, right? The consumer always wants the next best thing, but investors want to hear about how you can either maintain margins or grow margins in a sustainable way, in a sustainable fashion. So I think he does a really good job at that. And I think that'll be ultimately a little bit of a tailwind for them. So I think there's more upside potential than downside. And we'll see how this plays out. And if we have a significant downside move, I mean, the market's been really disconnected. Import Dora was talking about this yesterday. Market's been disconnected from Apple for a very long time. And actually, this is probably the biggest disconnect that I've seen from price action, barring what we saw from last month. But we had maybe 2.5 months where Apple was just completely disconnected from the S&P 500, which typically doesn't happen that way. Now, maybe it was a little bit of a leading indicator that we were going to get a broader pullback. Maybe not. But I think the market can stomach Apple not showing up to the party. And they still could find ways to be able to gain higher. I go back to the fact, outside of Apple, I go back to the fact that yields and dollar are going to be the two main factors that we see as headwinds. We are seeing yields actually move back to the upside here this morning if you're looking at the 10-year or 20-year, 30-year. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet when it comes to what we heard from the Fed yesterday. I think we still probably have some volatility here. Apple might be able to give us a little bit of a reprieve to the upside, but from a technical standpoint, I still think we got two more waves to the downside left to go here. And last thing I will say on this, I've been very surprised by the 100-day SMA that hasn't really been a strong moving average, but it seems like we're kind of holding that. But now we're coming to the apex. It's kind of like
You guys can see
a
my
triangle
computer.
formation or a symmetrical triangle formation, right? Where we come to the apex of that, and we can either break to the upside or break to the downside for the broader equity market. So that probably will occur maybe Wednesday or Thursday of next week, depending on the price action that we have. And we'll kind of see how the market kind of reacts. But I think that I still think that we have some downside movement in the broader equity market. Well, when you're looking at the S&P 500 at least.
Sorry, the movement in Apple versus some of the market in general has been pretty fascinating to watch. Apple go up, market goes down. Apple goes down, market goes up. Apple and Tesla have really been trading together. The kind of names that have been underperforming so far this year have been moving together in tandem. But we'll see how long that one lasts. Couple thoughts there that I want to touch back on. But Emperor Door, I wonder if you have anything you're watching for those Apple earnings after the close today.
Yeah. So my term that I've been using for Apple is detached, which I mean, it's been on its own kind of own kind of deal, right? It's just got its own little dance step that it's following, and hopefully, I'm hoping this report kind of puts it back in. I mean, just for the overall market perspective and for Apple in general, I hope this report is a surprisingly good one. And that's hope. That's not a prediction. So I would to see Apple do something, but they scratched the car. We've heard
Sorry,
that
had a
news
lot going in the
recently. They
background.
scratched the car. They've had some AI talk, just little headlines and blips that have come out here and there. So maybe we'll see Tim come out and really sell it. That would be something I'm watching for. Is okay, and the reaction to it, right? So hopefully, it seems like Apple's had nothing but neutral to poor news. I don't want to say bad news, but just poor news. So, yeah, obviously, yeah, a lot of issues over in China and stuff like Kevin touched on. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want to see if Apple can turn the corner with, obviously, some people even invest in companies based on leadership too, right? So like. I've heard several people talk about Disney as well, with Bob Iger, and say, okay, I'm going to invest in Disney here. It's had a big pullback, but I believe in the CEO. I believe in the leadership. So, obviously that's probably not the only strategy you should use, but that is something that people do pay attention to, and something that does have a solid effect on things. So, I think Tim may be able to pull something off, but we'll see what happens as far as the report goes this afternoon, because it could be a turning point, or it could be hey, more of the same. We just don't have a whole lot of good catalyst upside stuff going on right now in Apple. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on the Apple side. Kevin, it seems like seeing a lot of things similar to what I am, as far as just like I said, I was using the term neutral to bearish in the overall. He mentioned the waves. I love some good Elliott wave theory. I need to study it further and learn it and better, so I can actually use it more in my own technical analysis. But it's I've met some really good friends out here from these spaces and from X in general that I can lean on whenever it gets into one of those weaker areas of TA that I have, like Elliott wave theory or market auction theory, some of that stuff. But I do want to mention there's some other really interesting names today. I know everyone's focused on Apple, but Coinbase, I think, is a very, very interesting report today. Nothing else, I don't think that is market moving, but I think Coinbase is really interesting. And then DraftKings. DraftKings has been on a really big run. I'm an investor, I'll put it that way, in DraftKings. Very interested in that name, so I'm looking forward to that report today as well. So I think there's some other, and then of course Cloudflare and Fortinet report today, Amgen, some other big names, and then we've talked about it some. I'd like to hear Kevin's thoughts on this as well. Booking and Expedia are both reporting today, which kind of tells some about the consumer too, right? So we've seen, with Starbucks' report and some of the other stuff, we've seen some concerns about the consumer. But I'd like to know what the travel side of things is. I think that sometimes gives you a decent look into the consumer as well, because you have the everyday stuff, and then you toss in when people are traveling and taking vacations. Obviously, they're doing a little bit better, and then when they're not really traveling, then that's kind of one of the first things that people cut back on, is not taking a big trip. So I'd be interested to see what those reports are as well today.
Hedged risk, you close your dirty mouth. Yeah, looking for that Coinbase one in DraftKings. It's funny. I don't use TradingView at all. And apparently you can put tweets on here. So I went back pretty far back on the Coinbase one, and I have on here a tweet from Jim Cramer saying in 2021 we like Coinbase at 475, and then I have a tweet from Kathy Wood and ARK selling the majority of their Coinbase at, what is this, 53 in July 2022. So yeah, interesting times for Coinbase. I don't know what they've done since. I think they still own a bunch of Coinbase, Kathy and them, but yeah, just funny tweets to just randomly find popped up on my chart here. Should be an interesting one. I do want to double tap a little bit more into Apple, and then we could talk through some of the other ones. I know the market will care about, at least FinTwit will care about DraftKings and Coinbase a good little bit. There are a couple others as well. But for Apple, the two stories here really are, and actually I was looking at some other places. This Investopedia article, I mean, I guess it's an easy summary. They summed it up pretty well. We're looking at two things here. How soft are the iPhone sales going to be in China, and what type of story can they tell us? Are they gonna kind of maybe shine the light on that Bernstein report from a couple days ago, saying that the China iPhone market is more in a cyclical decline than a structural decline, meaning that this is just a little bit more of a 1-2 year thing, and it's a cycle, and it's gonna end up picking back up, or is this really a change in the Chinese consumer wanting less American-made products, wanting other phones, as that's a very competitive market? That will be a very key one to watch. And I think the other debate that we are keeping on watch here is Apple and AI. What's going to be happening there? What type of Siri LLM are we going to be getting? What is a partnership with either OpenAI or Google going to look like, and how is it directly going to profit Apple today? I think those are the two things that we're looking for. The China one more on this last quarter, and the AI one on more of the next couple quarters on what they could sell it. But I would say those are the two key hinge points here for these Apple earnings. Kevin, I wonder if you agree or think there's a third one, or one of them should be changed. I would love to know just the really key things that you're focusing in on these Apple earnings.
Yeah, I mean, we already kind of talked about the iPhone sales, right? So I'll leave that. I'll leave that alone, right? We had a conversation on Power Hour a couple of days ago, Monday or Tuesday or something like that, right? And we had this back and forth, and honestly, I was probably I was looked at as being on the wrong side of the argument, but I'll still kind of go back to the fact that, the AI space and this narrative that Apple's not a part of it, I think is severely misled, to say the least. And you kind of talked about this, but Apple, one, there's very few leaks that come out of Apple ever. Like they don't really leak a lot there. They pretty much run a tight ship. When they do have a product offering that they are going to release, whether it's services or hardware based, when they do it in strength, to say the least, and then they actually explain themselves as far as the product offering. So we have the Vision Pro, right? Vision Pro, they kind of came out, look, this is how expensive it is, but we're looking for developers to really build out this ecosystem, which can take a couple of years to do, right? And I think that's going to be the case. And then you'll probably have better revisions of the product, a better user experience. You'll have an ecosystem that's going to be sustainable, that does provide monetary incentives for developers on the platform and things of that nature. So I think that's a bright spot, to say the least. They're not going to roll out something just because everybody else is doing it. That's one. Two, they can roll out an AI product and not have to have it complemented with a hardware device. And I think that's another misconception that a lot of people have, that Apple has to have a hardware item to bring in a software item. And that's just not the case. And I think that they want to have a better mix when it comes to their hardware and software or services. Sales, if you look at a 60-40 mix or even a 50-50 mix, that would probably be a little bit more better for Apple from a profitability standpoint. And I think that's going to be the long-term vision for them down the road. But the AI side, they will bring something out. I also kind of wanted to just highlight too, because people talk about Siri, like, oh, Siri's god awful. Like we have LLMs now. Why is the Siri an LLM? Like, tell me that you don't know how technology works by making those statements, right? Siri is not a large language model. It never was a large language model. Siri just interprets your voice and then basically does Google searches and then tries to bring all that information back to you. There's a large language model itself is interpreting what you are saying and then being able to comprehend it and then delivering it, the information back to you in a succinct manner. One-stop shop, not giving you multiple options, right? Siri is not an LLM. An LLM, and to build one out and to train one takes a lot of time. When you rush it, like Google did, you have issues. So Siri not being an LLM right now, and people are being frustrated with it, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. Let them perfect it. Let them cook a little bit, and then once it's going to be perfected, then they can roll something out. The same thing when it comes to Alexa. People talk about Amazon and Alexa. Like Alexa is not an LLM. An LLM is completely, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different computer models that are out there to do multiple different functions. So we have to understand what an LLM has and what the hype is right now around AI, which is large language models, and then what we have seen in the past where it comes to generative text, or if it comes to machine learning, or any type of these models that are out there, random forest models, what have you. But I think we always have to kind of keep that in mind. You can't just plug and play Siri into a large language model on the back end and say, like, okay, here's Siri 2.0. Go and have fun. It's going to take, it's a lot more than that. And I think Apple is very diligent when it comes to their product offerings. And I think that that's going to be, the case. So all in all, why I say that, if you're looking for hardware to come out of Apple to be something that's going to be the next revolutionary thing in the next 6 months or so, then you're going to be waiting. I think they're going to really kind of focus on the software side. They're going to really focus on the services side. That's where they're making profitability, especially if the China situation is not just a short-term blip and there is a nationalistic tone and purchasing trends that are happening with the consumer within China that we are kind of seeing across the board in multiple industries. If that's going to be the case, they're going to have to diversify the revenue streams. There's you don't double down in a business that you're kind of losing market share in. You find other avenues to be able to be profitable. And at the end of the day, you want bottom line growth. You want profitability. Obviously, you want to grow your revenue as well. But honestly, if you can keep your marginability at 30%, 40%, and you can do that consistently rather than having all of these cyclical changes in your business, and maybe you're going to be profitable one quarter, maybe not the next quarter, that instability doesn't give you sticky fund flows as far as an investor. So that's what I look like for what I look in for Apple. They're just going to be steady Eddie. They're going to do their thing. They will revolutionize the space, but it's going to take a lot more time than what people think is going to take time, think is going to happen. And it does not require new hardware. It does not require new hardware. In fact, AI should actually reduce the amount of hardware that we have as individuals over the long term. And I think they're going to understand that and improve that vision. And that's where I think the bright spot long term is going to be. It's not going to be creating some device and like, hopefully you guys like it. And if you don't like it, then it's just going to be a dud. And that's not really good. That's not really good ROI on R&D spend. So that's very long-winded, but I think it has to be said the different components of this company and the reason why we're not hearing so much on the Siri side and the complexities that go into actually building out the back-end infrastructure for a Siri-style product that would be in a large language model format, right?
We know I'm biased in Apple's favor, so I don't need to go too deep into it, but watching the release of Gemini, or whatever the Google LLM was, and how many problems they had around it and all the drama it created, I'm not surprised Apple didn't go that route, and that's just not their style. I will say it's a little bit of a mix, because even when I say that, Apple was clearly behind. There was a switch in focus. Give or take, we'll say start of this year. I don't know exactly when it was, but it was more than a year after the biggest names said, hey, we're going all in on AI, and we started to hear Tim Cook talking about it more. There was a long time where they tried to say machine learning and everything like that. They avoided saying AI. I think they thought it was a hype word and didn't want to get a part of it, which I'm happy with the underlying ethos of Apple. I think the argument that they waited a little bit too long probably does. We probably will look back and know that's true. They probably needed to make that decision
Evan,
6 months in as opposed to a year.
real quick? Can I push back on that real
Sure,
quick?
I'm for it.
Like, waited too long. Dude, the mainstream just picked up ChatGPT not 30 months ago. If you think about it, right? I mean, that's literally when it came like mainstream. Now, ChatGPT was out a couple of months before that, and developer. I mean, I was loving it as a developer, but at the end of the day, I didn't think the mainstream was actually going to take it up that quickly, right? And it caught like wildfire. But I think if you're Apple, I understand what you're saying, but they have to be very methodical about this because we have seen these type of situations occur in the past. Blockchain. Let me just throw blockchain out. AI and blockchain are two different things. But if you think about anymore, AI is going to be a different story for sure. But understand, I think you don't have to be the first. You do not have to be the first player in the space to win. We always have to remember that. You have to be the best implementer, right, of a plan here. IBM, really good example. One of the first players when it comes to personal computing. Where's IBM right now? Who perfected that space? Microsoft. They were not the first ones when it came to graphical user interface and the technology around that, right? Xerox was. What did Microsoft be able to do? And then Microsoft then transitioned to more software based, right, instead of hardware. Look at what Apple did. The point is, I understand that people want to be first, but because you're first doesn't mean you're going to be the one to win in the long term. Apple has never been really known outside of maybe the iPod to be the first to the scene and to be able to command and capture that market and sustain that market over the long term. We love the hype cycle right now, but if you're a long-term investor, I would rather have Apple get it right than rush something just to be a part of the herd. They don't need to be a part of the herd so much. I mean, look, they're the biggest publicly traded company in the world at the end of the day, right? Like their passive flows alone are going to sustain the stock unless we have a huge market crash and everybody just decides to sell out of their 401k. Their passive flows are going to sustain them for a very long time. But I think we have to think about these product cycles as a whole, no matter what industry that you're into, and just know you don't have to be the first, because the first of every market, for the most part, do not last. The ones that can perfect and provide the right product are the ones that last. That's where Apple provides strength. Slow and steady does win the race in certain markets, and even when you're talking about technology, especially consumable goods, which is where they focus on. Microsoft is doing a lot, but they're doing a lot on the enterprise side. Microsoft, on the other side of that, outside of ChatGPT and this weird relationship that they have, that the EU is going to probably definitely blow up here in about 7 months or 8 months, that is going to be on the horizon. But outside of that, they're working on enterprise, and enterprise markets are completely different than what we are seeing for consumables. And then Google's kind of like trying to do in the middle type of work right now, and trying to have the best of both worlds. They're going to have to figure out one way or another. But I kind of go back to that. 13 months in the making. Yes, as somebody commented, they have billions of dollars. They should have been on the scene. Cool. That might be the case, but why rush something? If you think that this is going to be a long-term sustainable scenario that's going to last for 30, 40, 50 years, do you need to have that first year to get off the block and say, oh, okay, I need to capture this right now because the attention's and the market for it? No. What are we doing 20 years, 30 years from now that can be sustainable? And I think that's going to be the ones that win, that ultimately win. MySpace was the most popular social media platform on the planet. It wasn't Meta. Meta came out and made something better, and Meta sustained. And MySpace is now a dormant domain name. You have all of these different examples that are out there. ExxonMobil used to be the number one company in the United States as far as market cap. Where is it now? Right? All of these things change over time. And I think that if you look at it from a long term, Apple does right when it comes to the right products in the market and to be able to keep market share. Don't rush something that's going to ultimately fail, because that could also be a PR nightmare like Google had, where people were calling for Sundar Pichai's head 3 months ago, and now he's the biggest rock star on the planet because their stock hits all-time highs and they're providing a dividend. This intraday stuff or this day-by-day, week-by-week stuff, let it go. Long-term vision, I think Apple's they're gonna command it. They haven't skipped a beat yet. I don't expect them to do so in the next 10 years.
Kevin, I agree with you. I think it's some really interesting stuff going on there. And Apple, over the last 10, 12 years, we've had this debate with them and Android and Samsung and whatever it is. Android, Samsung adds a new feature. It's fine. 3, 4, 5 years later, Apple adds a very similar feature that's a little bit better, that fixes some pain points, and now we have a new top of the line Apple product. Apple has built up their ethos on doing things right, not doing them first. And even my comments there, it is interesting to see how quickly we can get away from that when the next big hype cycle comes. And obviously this one we think will end up being a real one, but will be interesting to see what comes of it. I definitely do not think LLMs and kind of these chatbots are the end all of what this AI wave is going to end up being. And it is interesting right now that is everything that it's being attributed to. Like if you're doing AI, I feel like a lot of like the market's first assumption is, oh, what's your chatbot? What's your LLM? And obviously we know that's a very early stage of this AI revolution, which has definitely taken over. It will be interesting to see as it gets more built out and if it goes the way people want it to, what different parts of AI people start to get interested into. It has been fascinating to watch the Tesla FSD not be considered an AI model for a lot of things, and Elon's obviously trying to get it into that direction. But I'm excited to see what Apple builds next. hopefully they come out with more than just some chatbot or something. But it definitely
Well,
makes
they
yeah.
are right. They are right. I don't want to get technical, but like some of the stuff that companies are like, oh yeah, we use AI to be able to predict the price of blah 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 as consumers
You said let me
consumer
see
traffic
if I
comes
can
into the
open
store. We're able to predict prices better using artificial intelligence. It's like,
this
are you though?
right here where my
Or,
thing
or,
is.
or are you
That right there,
using
that
just a
5,000
basic
level is
linear
about where
regression
my
model in order
Kevin was
to
talking about.
predict prices? Are you using, any type of regression model? It doesn't have to be linear, right? Is it like a random forest model? Is it really AI? That's the thing. If you ask ChatGPT right now, hey, build a model on trying to predict price with these different variables. You can use volume, open interest. You can use all these different things. Build me out something. And you ask AI, and you ask ChatGPT, which is AI, right?
With pressure 502.5,
ChatGPT
so
is going to
opening
come
up in
back
a
to you and say,
bullseye.
okay, well, there's several different models that you can use. You can
Interesting.
use linear regression, you can use random forest models, you can use whatever, right? The AI itself is still telling you to use machine learning type models out there. That's something that's been out. And so I think you use the word AI, but now AI is like encompassing pretty much
Market will probably
anything
like
that
this
can
one.
predict, any model that can predict, no matter if it's the most simplest one that's been around literally for thousands of years, or if it's something that's been in development for the last 20. And so, yes, is FSD technically an AI model? No, not now in certain respects, and Elon knows that. But in other respects, what they are utilizing is a lot of compute in order to train data to be able to leverage these systems in the whatever model that they are using right now. I don't have the intricacies of their model, but once again, I think Elon and Tesla know the difference between artificial intelligence and just straight up just basic models that we've been using for the last couple of years. So I do find that funny. CEOs are like, oh yeah, we use AI now to be able to like predict what the housing prices are going to be in this particular market. It's like, okay, just because you say AI doesn't mean like what specific model are you using? Not just this overall brand name of something that a lot of people just have no fundamental understanding of what it is and how these models are being built out. That's what I just want to continue to stress. Some of the stuff that people are saying is not really AI. It's something that's already been implemented. They're just repackaging it using a buzzword and getting an extra $2 billion, $3 billion boost on market share, on market price.
It has been funny to see every single company talking about AI. Six Flags just talking about how they're using AI. Some other just random companies. It's every single sector is trying to get in on how it can positively impact their business. But yeah, back to Apple. I want to ask you, Kevin. We've been getting a couple negative Vision Pro headlines, and a lot of the discussions end up leading in that direction. I don't think the market cares too much about the Vision Pro at this point in time. I think it might be given that kind of Reality Labs treatment. Like, yeah, we're more concerned about how much money you're, in the market's opinion, wasting and burning on fire as opposed to any possible positive outcomes that could come out of this one. And there was a story recently from Apple insider Ming-Chi Kuo, who, if you're not following him, I would. He has the ability to move Apple stock, a $2-3 trillion company, which is wild. But his headlines move Apple stock. They end up getting reported everywhere a couple hours later. But if you want the actual source, Ming-Chi Kuo is the guy that you should be following for some of these Apple headlines. But he was saying that they lowered their internal guidance and forecast on the Vision Pro from around 800,000 headsets, imagine just 800, down to 400,000. Now, who cares? Given the scale of their iPhone business, I think what the market might be telling itself. But also, it's probably obviously not the best thing for your new feature, the one that costs $3,500 to be struggling like it is. So we'll see. I really don't think the market cares about anything with the Vision Pro. And as we're saying, this is the device for the developers to help get the ecosystem built out so that when there is a real Vision Pro that Apple thinks can get to that wide market scale, it has apps on it and it's not a V1, it's a V2, which should be a lot better. But I'm intrigued to hear any headlines we get around the Vision Pro. I would be surprised if it moves the stock at all. But I wonder if you're watching anything in that direction in the AR VR, and if you think it's more of a kind of a meta story where they have to not go all in not try and signal to the market that we're just going to dump all our R&D money in here. And it's more of just this could be a call option, and try and talk about it as little as possible right now, so that when there is something to say, that's when they focus in on it. That's kind of the way I'm
Yeah,
feeling about the Vision Pro.
yeah, it's gonna be. It's gonna be a very small portion of their revenue right now, and it's gonna take time once again to build out the ecosystem. And I think they're making the investment there in
Like, what
order
is that?
to build that out. Now, AR/VR, I mean, there's definitely going to be a market for that in the future, for sure. I think right now you have to figure out what that future entails, right? Instead of just building out something that you hope it sticks, build out something that the market needs. And I think that's kind of what they're going to, they may take 4 years, 5 years to actually develop that out. And I think that they're willing to make that investment. But, you know, when we talk about these projects, once again, it's kind of like it's a slice of the overall cash flow that they are generating. So, you know, people talked about the car and like, oh, they put so much money at the car. It's like a couple $1 billion here and there is pennies to Apple. So yeah, I think it shouldn't be a headline mover. And unfortunately, I think analysts definitely hyped up the Vision Pro more than probably what Apple would have wanted. You know, there's some people that are like, oh, this is going to be like the next big thing since sliced bread, and they're going to realize all of this revenue in the next 12 months. And this is why we're moving our price targets up and things of that nature. And I don't think they had the supply chain to set that up in the first place. I mean, that was kind of the first thing that we kind of heard, that the supply chain and them actually building out these VR headsets was actually a little bit difficult, especially one of the processes to actually build out the lens for it has been actually very difficult to manufacture. And then, yeah, you're seeing, you know, consumer demand, the hype cycle is kind of going down a little bit. You got your diehards that are going to buy it. And then once your diehards kind of mingle with it a little bit and your developers build out the right platform and the right applications for it, then that's when you're going to see it grow. And then also the partnerships as well. Once they get those partnerships up and running and provide a viable product for certain things like watching these playoff games, right, for the NBA, being able to have that experience where you're sitting in the front row. And then, like, you know, that would be fairly cool, right? And then what if you did pay $10, 15, $20 to have that experience for a game for your favorite team? Boom, that's a revenue stream, but that's not fully built out yet. They have a concept for it, but they haven't really fully built out that model yet, and it's just going to take some time. So, Vision Pro for me, I'm not a fan of it, but I'm hitting that. You know, that stage of my life where I'm like, I hate technology, even though I deal with it literally every single day and leverage it for trading and all this stuff. It's kind of like, you know, do I really want that experience? No, that's probably not going to be for me, but I can tell you my son is probably going to be all about it. And that's probably how they're going to be learning in 10 years from now when they're in school doing some project or whatever, right? Like that's how technology works. And so it's just going to take some time, but it should not be a mover to the upside or downside for the stock if their sales for Vision Pro or their guidance or foreseeable guidance that they provide high level comes up shorter than the street's expectations. I think analysts completely overhyped the Vision Pro situation, because I think once again they wanted a narrative and they saw the price action. And a lot of these analysts are just following price action for a lot of these stocks and trying to justify it by backing into a fundamental thesis rather than having a fundamental thesis that then leads to a price level that they call out as far as a price target on a 12-month price target. So that's what I personally believe has happened, not only when it comes to Apple, but across the board when you're looking at like SMCI and these other companies that may have gotten ahead of themselves when it comes to the hype around the products that they offer.
Hey guys, I hate to jump in here, but I do have to jump over to the trading space with Wolf. But I've been loving the conversation, and actually I stuck around a little bit longer than I probably should have, because I wanted to hear that stuff. So I really appreciate both of you guys. But I got to jump over there. I'm sure we'll be in touch throughout the day, but appreciate both of you guys. Love these morning spaces.
Yep, appreciate you, Emp, and everyone should make sure they're following him. Fantastic speaker. Appreciate you joining in on these morning spaces. Kevin as well, co-hosting a lot of these, sharing his thoughts. I'm looking forward to these Apple earnings. We're gonna have you guys on that Power Hour later today for the live earnings.
I will be on.
Nice.
Yes.
I'll definitely be around for that.
Kevin, I and Emp, you need to join it, but I need an Apple Bowl or two on there, or at least someone who can give that perspective, so I'm not alone fighting for my life in the trenches. I need a teammate down there. So we'll see, and we'll obviously be talking a lot less if Apple goes down 10% in after hours following its earnings. But Let's not put that juju in the air. Only good energy. Kevin, I really want to just talk on one more quick topic here, and then we'll end it out. I know we're a little bit over when we generally do go. Tomorrow morning, this Spaces, I'm sure we'll have 3x the amount of people as we're getting that NFP print. I'm gonna set my alarm, like 5 of them, to make sure I'm up early. So we're going live at 8:15 tomorrow morning. That's some big data we have coming. We'll talk about all of it later on. But you're watching tomorrow morning. You think that's gonna has the ability to move the market pretty aggressively? Or aggressively might be a strong word, but are you watching the data tomorrow morning to be market moving data?
Oh yeah, for sure. Non-farm payrolls, yes, but right now it's sitting at
NFP.
243,000. I think we actually missed that, honestly. I think we probably come in at 238,000, and I do believe the unemployment rate will actually tick up to 3.9 tomorrow as well. Now, the initial claims that we were seeing on a week-over-week basis continues to show strength, but at this point, we are kind of seeing a little bit of a fall-off effect that's happening, which is kind of providing a little bit more strength to that weekly number that we might not actually see reflected on the monthly number. So once again, I kind of think that we might come up a little bit short. I know ADP had some really strong numbers that came out, but I just feel that the comps on non-farm payroll might be a little high, and I think I'm not saying this is going to be the start of cracks happening in the market, but maybe potentially a deceleration, because we continue to see these job cuts being taking place. There's only so many part-time jobs that are going to be able to refill that. And when you're looking at the Challenger job data for this morning, mid-sized and small businesses are starting to maybe feel a little bit of the impact when it comes to the labor market, and that's really what's been providing a strength over the last 6 months. So that's kind of where I'm at right there. But we've been trending on beating, and I think if we actually have a beat on that number, I think that would actually be positive for the market. Right now, you don't want to see job losses while we are also seeing inflation going back to the upside, because that's kind of giving fuel to that step now. But yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a market mover. So check that out. And average hourly earnings is obviously the biggest component that I'm kind of focusing on. And Street's looking for that to come in at 0.3% month over month. Based on some of the hot data, I think we probably can come in a little bit hotter than that. And yeah, we kind of go from there. And that's, yeah, I would just say that's kind of why the productivity numbers are a little bit skewed as well, because like the less hours worked, right, being reflected as part-time jobs is kind of skewing that data. So average hourly earnings, I think, is going to be a better gauge to see the inflationary pressures in the market. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm looking forward to being on Spaces tomorrow and talking about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You think I should message Jaguar for it tomorrow morning? I feel like he could be a fun addition.
Yes, sir. He should be up here every day. I love Jag, man. I miss him on Power Hour.
Yeah, me too. I'll slide in the DMs today and see if we can make that happen. Kevin, I appreciate you on these spaces always. Such a smart guy. I appreciate you saying that word twice. I guess I mean it. But sharing the wisdom and the knowledge and co-hosting these things with me, it makes it a lot more enjoyable, helping everybody get ready for the day in the mornings. Like we were talking about here, tomorrow should be quite the interesting one, given that we do have a lot of data coming out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be live nice and early, 8:15 a.m. Eastern, so we can be in the thick of it for that data. I'm looking at my Catalyst watch. We have a MongoDB investor conference today, so maybe you're watching MDB at some point on watch. Besides that, it's really just the earnings. Let's pull up the Market Watch economic calendar. There is factory orders at 10 a.m. Eastern, so in about 15 minutes here. But besides that, that's the majority of the news from the macro front that we should be watching. So we're really focused on Apple earnings. I just got a notification Qualcomm up 10% in early trading today, moving nicely to the upside off of some earnings. Hopefully, again, I'm not just copium here, but that's a decent sign for those Apple earnings coming up after the close. We shall see. All right, everybody. I think that's going to end it for us on this one. Make sure you're following Kevin. He's fantastic. He'll be here tomorrow morning as we talk about some of the major data that we got coming. But Apple earnings after the close today, definitely something to keep an eye on. We're going to be live on Spaces for it, and we hope you will all join us. All right, everybody. Have a good one, and we'll catch you all later. Thanks, Kevin. Let's get this out. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1. All right. Have a good one, everybody. I may just stay here for a second and dig through anything we got coming. But yeah, I hope you will join us. I'm gonna go over to Jordan's live stream in a couple minutes and hang out there. So stick with us. Hope you guys all have a good one. All right, it is now just me and the live stream. All right, so these things will only get better. I think the quality that the quality of the content that we're talking about here on this morning show is fantastic. I really love getting to listen to Kevin every single morning and hearing what he's watching and keeping that on my radar. I think that's a great way to start your day. So I will definitely be doing more of these morning live streams. I'm going to try and continuously improve the quality of everything. Obviously, right now we're just looking at my screen, and this is just as quickly as I can get started of live streaming and getting into a habit. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys see more of it. Hedged Risk and Rupesh, I really, really appreciate you. I'm not sure if you guys are still in this chat. Totally would understand why you guys weren't. Was an interesting live stream. But like I said, the quality of the content on this morning show that I'm hosting with Kevin and Emperador was on here today. Hopefully Jaguar is with us tomorrow. Is just so fantastic that I know all of you guys are going to get a lot of value by listening to it. So some of you guys might be from Instagram. I'm probably going to end up shouting these stuff out more and more on Instagram to try and get some of the audience over, because all this live content is fantastic, and you guys should be getting the quality and getting ready for the day. But let's dig back through some of the stuff that I've posted so far today, none of which has made it over to Instagram yet. I will be posting some of it over there in a second. But Qualcomm up about 10% in pre-market trading right now, or in early market trading today. Keeping an eye on this one. It was up about 4 or 5%, and then it just shot up as we got into the actual session. We did have the second largest bank, BNP Paribas. That's the second largest European bank. Bought a little bit of the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF. Important to keep on note, though, that is they bought $40,000 worth, which for an average person is not a nothing burger, but for the second largest European bank, I would classify 40,000 as in the not a lot camp. We did have Apple moving higher on the news that Tim Cook is expected to hint at new AI features next week. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on an Apple, an eye on Apple for their earnings after the close today. But we'll see if any AI headlines coming out of it are interesting. Like we were talking about, the big thing we're watching on those Apple earnings: two things. The China story. Is the downturn in iPhone sales there, is it cyclical, meaning this is more of a 1-2 time thing and it's going to bounce back, or is it structural? Are we going to see iPhone sales pretty much only just going down in China from here? Is the Chinese consumer more concerned about buying a U.S. product than they might have been in the past? Questions that we will maybe soon get answers to. I have a feeling it might take a little bit longer than just what we have here, but that is a big question. And the other one around Apple is the whole AI story. As Kevin was talking about, some people want to go in and say Apple's fallen behind and it's over and they're never going to catch up. But if this AI story is truly a multi-year catalyst, Apple is not behind. And they have the opportunity to not only catch up, but also be ahead of a lot of these other competitors. So I'm keeping an eye in that direction. Apple, obviously my largest holding, so hoping for some good stuff coming. We do have Peloton. They reported earnings this morning. Peloton has done nothing but just get absolutely destroyed over the last couple months and years, really. Stock's down again. Let's just look at this chart. It's a pretty ugly one. Let's switch it to the 1 day. Yeah, that's not what you want your chart looking like on a piton. So it was up all the way up here in like the 180s, 200 ranges, and now we're down at 313. So some rough movements for Peloton. CEO leaving, announcing a 10% layoff. Peloton moving lower off of that one. Couple stories from last night also were interesting. This one, Google laying off hundreds of core employees. That generally just means it's in the areas that it considers core. So AI, data center, that's probably where these employees are coming from. And they're outsourcing them over to India and Mexico. Now, I think it was like 300 jobs was the number that was getting quoted about. But we'll see if that theme continues. We had Powell saying this comment yesterday on why we might start to see diverging policy rate from different central banks around the world, and Powell was saying what's different about the U.S. It's the fact that we are experiencing the strong growth that the U.S. has been, and a lot of these other countries and regions, the EU being one of them, has not necessarily been as strong. I thought this story yesterday, it's not going to move the stock at all, but you guys can now rent that Airbnb, the Up House, from Airbnb. And they're going to lift it literally in the air. I think it was like 80 feet on a crane. So we'll see. You can also stay in the X-Men house. There was different stuff they had going on through, like, you can stay with Kevin Hart and stay in the Ferrari museum. So it was a little intriguing there. We'll see what goes on in that direction. And then Carvana, obviously, absolutely ripping today. Let's check what it's doing. Actually, as we got into the market session, CVNA. Holding on to some of it. It's pulled back a tiny bit, but still holding on to some of those gains. There was that big candle up here, and we haven't really gone back to filling that yet. There was a little bit of a wick down to it. We'll see if we get there. Carvana, decent numbers yesterday, moving higher off of that one. Unity Software, they announced a new CEO, who they were CEO-less for a long time, and it's going about sideways. I would have expected it to hold some of this move up, but we're basically right back to where we closed the day at yesterday and where it was. So new CEO, not making much of a difference there. Obviously, the Qualcomm numbers, raising their dividends, beating EPS and revenue. It was decent stuff for them. And then, yeah, we just had a lot of Jerome Powell headlines and stuff like that. All eyes on Apple earnings after the close today. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. Some could call it copium. We'll see. It is my largest holding, as many of you guys know. So we'll see. All right, Hedged Risk, Rupesh, one more time. Thank you for being active members of the chat and helping me. It's a little tough to live stream when you know you're talking to no one, but when there's one or two people in the chat and I could just have a general conversation, I definitely do appreciate that. So, yeah, you guys should join the Discord room that I have that I use as a live chat. It's a free Discord room, and I would love to have you guys in there and we could talk more out and just keep building up that community. Everything we do here is about community and enhancing it and only getting better. So, yeah. All right. If you enjoy these type of live streams and I want to keep doing more of them, like I said, this is probably the worst it's ever going to be. Look at the quality I'm streaming here. You can see so much going on and it's weak. I think the mic quality is pretty good though, which is good to see. But yeah, if you enjoy these type of things and just like hearing live content, like getting ready for the market in the morning, all that type of things, you should be subscribed to this YouTube channel. I'm trying to up the levels. For me, a couple years ago, it was Twitter that I needed to break into and figure everything out and get better on. 2 years ago, it was Instagram. Last year was a couple other things, getting emails going. And this year, I'm focusing on YouTube. YouTube is my goal for the year. Live streaming is going to be a part of it. I have a plan to do a video for the Warren Buffett press conference over the weekend, his 2024 Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholder meeting. I will be posting a video on here doing a recap of it. I might even do a video on like get ready for the Warren Buffett conference. So we'll see. A lot of stuff to look forward to. But overall, YouTube is going to be a major part of what I'm doing going forward. I want to break into this. I want to be the best stock market live streamer in the world on YouTube, and I hope you guys will all be a part of it. So I am going to pretty much end the live stream here. I hope you guys all enjoyed everything we got going here. I'm going to try this again tomorrow morning. We have a little bit more data, so we'll see how that goes. But I hope you guys all had a fantastic morning. Have a great day, and I will be keeping an eye on the markets as always. So if you're following the Twitter, if you're following the Instagram, you will get to see this type of thing. And yeah, appreciate each and every single one of you. And we'll catch you all later. Let's see how the ending of the live stream goes.